I never thought my own son would betray me at the Thanksgiving table. Family drama can cut deeper than any knife, especially when money and trust are involved. The moment is burned into my memory like a scar that never fully heals. The turkey was still steaming on the table. Laughter filled my dining room as I carried in the final dish, my famous sweet potato casserole with the brown sugar pecan topping that everyone fights over. My heart was full, watching my family gathered around the table I'd spent all morning setting with my best china. That's when it happened. "Mama, quit asking for money. It's embarrassing." Jackson's words sliced through the chatter, leaving a silence so complete you could hear the candles flickering. My hands froze mid-air, still holding the casserole dish. 20 pairs of eyes darted between us, witnessing my public humiliation. I felt the heat rise to my face as my throat tightened. The weight of those words crushed something inside me, something I'd spent 64 years building, my dignity. My voice cracked. I couldn't finish the sentence. What made it worse? I hadn't asked him for a dime. I was the one who'd been silently paying his debts for years, $80,000 worth. I carefully set down the casserole, my hand trembling so badly I nearly missed the table. The room tilted slightly as I gripped the back of my chair, steadying myself. "Excuse me," I whispered, turning away before anyone could see the tears welling in my eyes. As I walked to my bedroom, my legs felt like they belonged to someone else. Behind me, I heard my daughter Renee's chair scrape against the floor as she stood up, followed by urgent whispers. But to understand why those words cut so deep, why they shattered me completely, you need to know everything that came before that Thanksgiving night. Also, download your ebook titled Suspense and Thriller Stories by clicking the link in the pinned comment. My name is Eleanor Wilson. For 32 years, I was the administrative assistant to the principal at Westlake High School in Atlanta. The kind of job where you know every student's name, every parent's voice on the phone, and exactly which teacher needs coffee before you dare ask them about late grades. I retired 4 years ago, though I still volunteer at my church's bookkeeping office twice a week. Old habits die hard, and numbers have always made sense to me. People, on the other hand, especially family, they're much more complicated. Thomas, my husband, passed away 8 years ago. Heart attack while mowing the lawn on a hot July afternoon. One minute he was pushing that old mower across our front yard, humming along to whatever was playing on his headphones, and the next, gone. 39 years of marriage ended between one heartbeat and its absence. We weren't wealthy, but we were careful. Thomas worked as an electrical engineer, and between his pension, my retirement, and our savings, I should have been set for life. Should have been. Jackson, our firstborn, was always Thomas's pride and joy. Even as a boy, he had this way about him, this charm that made everyone lean in when he spoke. He'd flash that smile with the dimple on his right cheek, and teachers would forget he hadn't turned in his homework. Again. He graduated from Georgia State with a finance degree, landed a job at a prestigious firm, and for a while, everything seemed perfect. Designer suits, luxury apartment downtown, leased BMW, the American dream wrapped up with a bow. Renee, my daughter, took a different path, practical from the day she was born. While Jackson was charming his way through life, Renee was working night shifts at the hospital, putting herself through nursing school. No glamour, just steady determination. She lives 30 minutes away with her partner Delia in a modest house they saved for together, dollar by dollar. Sunday dinners at my house were our tradition. Jackson would arrive late, full of stories about clients and deals, while Renee would have already been there an hour quietly helping me in the kitchen. Thomas used to say, "Jackson will dazzle the world, but Renee will hold it together." After Thomas died, those Sunday dinners became even more important. My anchor in a world suddenly tilted off its axis. Jackson stepped up, calling more often, handling the funeral arrangements, dealing with the insurance company. "Don't worry about a thing, Mom," he'd say. "I've got this." And I believed him. Why wouldn't I? He was the financial expert after all. What I didn't see then, what a mother doesn't want to see, were the small signs. The way he changed the subject when I asked about his job, how he'd check his phone anxiously when it buzzed, the growing tension in his shoulders. I was too busy being grateful for his help, too focused on my grief, to notice that my son's perfect life was starting to crack around the edges. And that's when the money requests began. It started small. A Tuesday afternoon phone call 3 years after Thomas passed. "Mom," Jackson's voice had that tight quality it gets when he's stressed. "I hate to ask, but I'm in a bit of a jam. Just temporary." He explained about an investment opportunity, a tech startup that couldn't miss. He'd maxed out his credit card to get in early, but now needed to cover the minimum payments until the returns started flowing. "Just 3 months, Mom. 6,000 tops. I'll pay you back with interest." I transferred the money that same day. It wasn't even a decision, really. That's what mothers do. 3 months came and went, then 6. "The company's going through a restructuring phase," he explained over Sunday dinner, voice low so Renee couldn't hear from the kitchen. "Just need a little more time." By then, there was a second credit card, then a third, each with his own story. Medical bills from when he'd broken his wrist skiing, though I never saw a cast. Property taxes higher than expected on his condo. A temporary gap between jobs when his firm restructured. That was the first red flag I chose to ignore. Jackson had told me he'd been promoted, not let go. I dipped into my savings, then my retirement fund. Just temporary transfers, I told myself, just until Jackson got back on his feet. A year passed. The startup failed. But there was another opportunity, another reason why this time would be different. I started hiding the financial paperwork when Renee visited, keeping 2 sets of budget books, the real one and the one I show my daughter if she asked. A mother protecting her son's pride, or maybe a mother hiding her own foolishness. By year 2, I was paying minimum payments on 5 credit cards. Jackson had stopped mentioning repayment. Instead, he'd bring expensive wine to Sunday dinner or talk about the vacation he was planning. "You should come with me to Cabo, Mom. You deserve a break." I'd smile and say maybe, knowing I couldn't afford it, not with the $1,200 payment to his visa due the next day. The statements came to my address now. Jackson had moved apartments and hadn't updated his billing information yet. Another lie I pretended to believe. By the 3rd year, I was cutting corners in my own life, turning the thermostat down in winter, clipping coupons like I hadn't done since Thomas and I were newlyweds, canceling my book club because the monthly lunch out had become an extravagance. One night, alone in my kitchen, with all the statements spread out before me, I finally added it all up. $83,427. The number stared back at me, impossible and undeniable. Nearly half of what Thomas and I had saved over our entire working lives, gone. I sat there till sunrise, a cup of tea growing cold beside me, wondering how I'd let it get this far, how the son I raised had become someone who would take and take while watching me sacrifice more and more. But what I didn't know then, what would change everything, was that Jackson had already taken more than I realized, and he wasn't planning to stop. Renee has always had her father's timing. Thomas could walk into a room exactly when you needed him, not a minute before or after. Renee inherited that 6th sense, so perhaps I shouldn't have been surprised when she stopped by unannounced on the very afternoon I was sorting through Jackson's latest credit card statements. "Mom, door was unlocked. Her voice carried from the hallway as I frantically gathered papers from the kitchen table. Too late. She stood in the doorway, still in her blue hospital scrubs, eyes fixed on the scattered bills. "What's all this?" "Just some paperwork." I tried to stack them casually, but my hands betrayed me, trembling slightly. Renee stepped closer, picked up a statement before I could stop her. Her eyes widened as she read the name on the account. "Why do you have Jackson's credit card bill?" "He's between apartments, mail forwarding issue." She flipped to the second page where the payment history showed my checking account number. The silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken truths. Mom. Just that one word, filled with so much disappointment, it made my chest ache. How long? The dam broke. 3 years of secrets came pouring out. The initial loan, the failed business ventures, the mounting debt. How I'd been covering his minimum payments to protect his credit score. How he kept promising to pay me back once his next opportunity panned out. Renee listened, her expression shifting from shock to anger. When I finished, she placed both hands flat on the table, leaning forward. $80,000, Mom. That's financial abuse." "Don't use that word," I snapped. "He's going through a rough patch. He's trying." "Is he? Because it looks like he's living his best life on Instagram while you're in here drowning in his debt." She pulled out her phone and showed me photos I hadn't seen. Jackson at rooftop bars, on a boat, at expensive restaurants, all posted during the months he told me he was barely making rent. "He's your brother," I said weakly, "and you're my mother. Who's going to take care of you when this money runs out? Him?" Her laugh held no humor. "You've got maybe 10 years of retirement savings left at this rate." I hadn't allowed myself to do that math. The truth of it stung. "I'll talk to him," I promised. "He'll understand." "No, Mom. I'll talk to him." And she did. That Sunday dinner was the first one we'd ever had that ended in raised voices. Jackson accused Renee of meddling. Renee called Jackson a parasite. I sat between them, begging for peace, feeling the family had held together through grief, now fracturing along a new fault line. Jackson stormed out, but not before turning to me with wounded eyes. "I thought you had my back, Mom." After he left, Renee helped me clean up in silence. As she was leaving, she hugged me tightly. "Just promise me you won't give him any more money," she whispered. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak the promise aloud, because deep down, I knew if Jackson called in need, I'd still answer. That's the terrible power of a mother's love, knowing better, but doing it anyway. What I didn't realize was that Jackson had already found a way to take without asking, a betrayal so much worse than I could have imagined. The first sign came in the form of an overdraft notice. I'd always been careful with money, balancing my checkbook to the penny, just as Thomas had taught me. So when the bank notified me that my account was $237 overdrawn, I knew something was wrong. I drove to the bank that same morning, waited patiently for the young manager with the too bright smile to pull up my account details. "Let's see what happened here, Mrs. Wilson." Her fingers tapped across the keyboard. "Ah, yes, it looks like an automatic payment went through 2 days ago for $1,850 to American Express." My stomach dropped. "I don't have an American Express card." More typing. "The payment was authorized through online banking on October 12th. It's linked to an account under—" She paused, her professional smile faltering slightly. "Jackson Wilson." The room seemed to tilt. I gripped the edge of her desk. "Mrs. Wilson, are you all right?" I wasn't, but I nodded anyway, asked for printouts of all automatic payments set up in the past 6 months. There were 3, all to credit cards I didn't own, all in Jackson's name. Over $4,000 a month, quietly draining my account. He had used my computer during his last visit, must have seen my banking password written in the little notebook I kept in my desk drawer. The violation of it made me physically ill. I canceled the payments, changed my password, and drove straight to Jackson's apartment, the luxury high-rise where he still somehow afforded rent despite being between jobs for months. He answered the door in gym clothes, surprise flickering across his face. "Mom, everything okay?" I held up the bank statements. "You set up automatic payments from my account to your credit cards." He had the decency to look embarrassed at least, invited me in, offered me water I didn't want. "I was going to tell you," he said, pacing his sleek living room with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Atlanta skyline. "It was just temporary. The interest rates were killing me, and if I missed payments, my credit would be ruined." "So you took from my account without asking? That's stealing, Jackson." He flinched at the word. "Mom, come on. It's not like that between family." "What is it like then? Explain it to me." He sat beside me on his leather sofa that probably cost more than 3 of my mortgage payments, took my hands in his. "I'm drowning here, Mom. I've got investors circling for this new app I'm developing. Could be worth millions. But I need to keep up appearances, maintain certain connections. Once it launches, I'll pay you back everything, with interest." His eyes, so much like his father's, pleaded with me. And despite everything, I felt that pull, the need to believe him, to protect him. "No more automatic payments," I said firmly. "If you need help, you ask me first." Relief washed over his face. "Of course, absolutely. Thank you for understanding." I left feeling hollow, not victorious, not resolved, just empty. In the elevator down, I caught my reflection in the polished brass doors. When had I gotten so old? When had the determined woman who'd raised 2 children on a school administrator's salary become someone who would let her own son steal from her? That night, Renee called. "Did you talk to him?" I told her about the automatic payments, but downplayed the amount, still protecting him, even now. "Mom, this has to stop. He's using you." "He's struggling, Renee. He needs help." "So do you. When was the last time anyone asked what you need?" Her question lingered long after we hung up. What did I need? I'd spent so long being Thomas's wife, Jackson and Renee's mother, the school's administrator, the church's volunteer. Who was Eleanor Wilson when all those roles were stripped away? As November arrived, bringing with it the first real chill of winter, I made a decision. Thanksgiving would be different this year. I would talk to Jackson, really talk to him about repayment, about boundaries, about rebuilding trust. I spent weeks planning the perfect meal, sent out invitations to extended family, polished Thomas's mother's silver, told myself that breaking bread together would soften the difficult conversation to come. I had no idea that Thanksgiving would change everything, that the careful facade we'd all maintained was about to shatter completely. Thanksgiving morning dawned clear and cold. I was up before the sun, sliding the turkey into the oven, peeling potatoes, and rolling out pie crusts with hands that ached slightly from arthritis but moved with the muscle memory of decades. By 4 o'clock, my home hummed with the chaos of family. My brother Frank and his wife drove up from Florida. Thomas's sister Patricia brought her new boyfriend. Renee and Delia arrived early to help, while various cousins, neighbors, and church friends filtered in throughout the afternoon. Jackson arrived last, of course, fashionably late, with an expensive bottle of wine and that $1,000,000 smile. He kissed my cheek, complimented the decorations, and charmed Patricia's boyfriend with talk of investment opportunities within minutes. I watched him work the room, so effortlessly confident, so much like his father in looks, but missing Thomas's fundamental honesty. The weight of our unfinished business sat heavy on my chest. "You okay, Mom?" Renee appeared at my elbow, concern etched across her face. "Fine, honey. Just tired." I squeezed her hand. "We'll talk to him after dinner." She nodded, but her tight expression told me she didn't believe Jackson would listen. Dinner itself was a triumph. Golden turkey, fluffy mashed potatoes, 3 kinds of pie. 20 people squeezed around tables pushed together in my dining room, the good china gleaming under the chandelier Thomas had installed for our 20th anniversary. The conversation flowed easily, punctuated by laughter and the clink of silverware. I began to relax. Maybe this would work out. Maybe the warm glow of family would soften Jackson's defenses when I finally broached the subject of repayment. Then my cousin Gina, always a bit too fond of wine and gossip, raised her glass in my direction. To Eleanor, retired and living the good life. Must be nice to have your finances all figured out. Meanwhile, I'll be working until I'm 90. Polite laughter rippled around the table. I forced a smile, reaching for my water glass with suddenly trembling fingers. Mom's not exactly rolling in it, Aunt Gina, Jackson said smoothly. But she manages. Something in his tone, the casual dismissal, as if I should be grateful for his assessment, made Renee stiffen beside me. She'd manage better if she wasn't paying your bills, Jackson. Her voice was quiet, but clear enough to stop all conversation. The silence that followed felt endless. Jackson's smile froze, then slowly disappeared. "Excuse me?" he said. Renee set down her fork deliberately. "Mom's been covering your credit card payments for years. $80,000. Did you think no one would notice?" All eyes swung between them, then to me. I felt exposed, humiliated, not by Renee's words, but by the truth they revealed. My failure as a mother, laid bare for everyone to see. "That's not," Jackson started, then stopped, recalibrating. His expression hardened as he turned to me. "Is that what you've been telling people? That I'm some kind of mooch?" "I haven't told anyone," I whispered. "Renee found out by accident." "So you two have been talking about me behind my back?" His voice rose. "After everything I've done for this family?" Patricia's boyfriend shifted uncomfortably. Frank studied his plate with sudden intensity. "What exactly have you done, Jackson?" Renee challenged. "Besides drain Mom's retirement fund?" Jackson stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "I don't need this. Not today." He looked directly at me, eyes blazing. "Mama, quit asking for money. It's embarrassing." The room collectively gasped. I felt the blood drain from my face. "Jackson!" Frank's voice boomed with disapproval, but Jackson was already grabbing his coat. "I'm out. Call me when she stops playing the victim." The front door slammed behind him, leaving a vacuum of shocked silence. I rose slowly, legs unsteady. "Excuse me," I managed, before walking with as much dignity as I could muster to my bedroom. I sat on the edge of my bed, the same bed Thomas and I had shared for decades, and listened to the muffled sounds of my dinner party dissolving into awkward departures and hushed conversations. Renee knocked softly a few minutes later. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have—" "It's okay," I said, though it wasn't. It needed to be said. After everyone left, I sat alone in my quiet house surrounded by dirty dishes and half-eaten pies, the remnants of a holiday destroyed. But as I mechanically wrapped leftovers and loaded the dishwasher, a strange calm settled on me. The secret was out now, the pretense shattered, and in its absence, I felt something unexpected, relief. What I found next, hidden in Thomas's old filing cabinet, would change everything.
December arrived with a bitter cold snap and the daunting task of Christmas preparations. Jackson hadn't called since Thanksgiving. Renee checked on me daily, her concern palpable through the phone. "I'm fine," I assured her, though the silence from my son carved a hollow space inside me. One afternoon, searching for our old Christmas ornaments in the attic, I came across Thomas's filing cabinet. I'd gone through most of his papers after he died, but the bottom drawer had always stuck. Today, fueled by restless energy, I yanked it open with unexpected force. Inside were folders I'd never seen, investment records, insurance policies, and bank statements from an account I didn't recognize. Joint names, Thomas and Eleanor Wilson. At First Citizens Bank, not our regular bank. My hands trembled as I flipped through the statements. Thomas had opened this account 15 years ago, depositing a small amount from each paycheck. He'd never mentioned it. A secret nest egg that had grown to just over $50,000 by the time of his death. But what made my blood run cold was a withdrawal slip from 18 months ago. $20,000, signed with Jackson's handwriting, dated just 3 months after I'd given him that first loan. He'd known about this account all along, had accessed it without telling me, had been taking from both sides while watching me struggle. I drove to his apartment in a fog of betrayal and rage, the withdrawal slip clutched in my purse. When he opened the door, surprise quickly gave way to wariness. "Mom, what are you doing here?" I pushed past him into the apartment. "Did you think I wouldn't find out?" "About what?" But his eyes darted to my purse, a flicker of recognition that confirmed everything. I pulled out the withdrawal slip, held it up like evidence at a trial. "You took $20,000 from an account I didn't even know existed." He sighed, shoulders slumping slightly. "Dad told me about it before he died. Said it was for emergencies." "And was your emergency a down payment on this apartment? New furniture? That watch?" I gestured to the luxury surrounding us, purchased with my husband's secret savings. "You weren't using the money," he said, the words hitting me like physical blows. "It wasn't yours to take. Dad wanted me to have it." His voice rose defensively. "He told me to look after you, but also to make sure I was set up right. He knew how hard finance can be when you're starting out." I stared at my son, this stranger wearing familiar features, and something inside me finally broke. Not my heart, my illusions. Your father worked 60-hour weeks for 30 years, drove the same car until it died, never took a vacation without checking prices 3 times. My voice was steady now, cold with clarity. He would be ashamed of what you've become. Jackson flinched as if I'd slapped him. "That's not fair. Neither is stealing from your widowed mother." We stood facing each other across the gulf of his beautiful, empty apartment. The son who had everything but appreciated nothing. The mother who had given everything but demanded nothing. Until now. "I want it back," I said. "All of it. The $20,000, the credit card payments, every penny." He laughed, short and bitter. "Right. And where exactly do you think that money's going to come from?" "That's not my problem anymore." As I turned to leave, he called after me, panic edging into his voice. "Mom, wait, we can figure this out. I've got prospects. The app is almost ready for investors." I closed the door on his excuses, walked to my car with my back straight and my eyes dry. On the drive home, I made my decision.
The lawyer's office was in a modest building downtown, nothing like the gleaming skyscrapers where Jackson had once worked. Mr. Patel had handled Thomas's will and our estate planning. His eyes widened slightly when I explained why I'd come, but he showed no other reaction. "You have several options, Mrs. Wilson," he said, making notes in a legal pad. "We can file a civil suit for the unauthorized withdrawal. We can also pursue the credit card debt as a separate matter." "I don't want to put my son in jail," I clarified. "I just want what's mine." "Understood. We'll start with a formal demand letter. Document everything. Dates, amounts, any written promises of repayment." I'd brought it all. Every statement, every text message where Jackson had promised to pay me back soon, every record of transfers from my account to his. 3 years of financial entanglement spread across Mr. Patel's desk. And my will, I added. I want to change it. 2 weeks later, Jackson received the certified letter. His call came within the hour, voice tight with disbelief. "A lawyer, Mom? Seriously? You left me no choice. I can't believe you do this to your own son." The wounded innocence in his tone might have worked once, not anymore. "You have 30 days to respond with a repayment plan," I said, reciting the terms Mr. Patel had outlined. "After that, we proceed to court." "You'd sue me? Your own flesh and blood?" "You stole from me, Jackson, your own flesh and blood." The silence stretched between us, filled with the ghosts of what we once were to each other. "Fine," he finally said. "Have it your way." He didn't call for Christmas, didn't send a card. Renee and Delia came over, brought presents and homemade cookies, tried to fill the Jackson-shaped hole in the holiday. I smiled and pretended it was enough. January brought snow, unusual for Atlanta, and a terse email from Jackson's newly hired attorney. He would repay the $20,000 from Thomas's account in monthly installments of $500. The credit card debt he disputed as gifts freely given. Mr. Patel advised me we had a strong case for court. I gave the go-ahead. February, March, April, the case wound slowly through the legal system. I received the first 3 $500 payments, each one exactly on time, each one without a personal note. Spring bloomed outside my windows as I sat with Renee, reviewing my newly revised will. No longer would Jackson receive his inheritance outright. Instead, a trust would be established, managed by Renee, with strict conditions. "He's going to hate this," Renee said quietly. "Maybe, but he'll understand someday." The court date was set for June. 3 days before we were to appear, Jackson's lawyer called Mr. Patel. They wanted to settle. Full repayment of the credit card debt and monthly installments plus interest. "He's avoiding a judgment on his record," Mr. Patel explained. "This is a good outcome, Mrs. Wilson." I signed the agreement with a strange mix of victory and grief. I'd won, but at what cost? Summer turned to fall. The payments arrived like clockwork, impersonal and exact. No calls, no visits, no Sunday dinners. Just money transferring from one account to another, rebuilding my savings dollar by dollar. I filled the silence with new routines, joined a book club, started volunteering at a literacy program, had lunch with Frank and Patricia regularly, planted a vegetable garden in the backyard. Slowly, I became someone new, not just Thomas's widow or Jackson and Delia's mother, but Eleanor Wilson, a woman with her own life. Then, on a crisp October morning, Renee called with news that stopped me in my tracks. "Mom, you need to see this." The local business journal's website loaded slowly on my computer. Renee had sent the link with no explanation, just, "Call me after." There he was, Jackson, in a crisp blue suit, standing in front of a sleek office space. The headline read, "Local Entrepreneur Launches Financial Literacy App for Young Adults." I read the article twice, disbelief giving way to a complicated pride. Jackson had developed an application that taught college students how to manage credit, avoid debt, and build savings. The irony wasn't lost on me. "He's using his own mistakes," Renee said when I called her, "teaching others what not to do." The article mentioned initial funding from angel investors, a small but growing user base, and positive reviews. No get-rich-quick scheme this time. A real business built on hard work and perhaps hard lessons. I printed the article, folded it carefully, and placed it in my bedside drawer. didn't call him, didn't send a congratulatory note. The wall between us remained, built of hurt and pride on both sides. The payments continued, steady and silent. Winter passed, spring returned. 1 year after Thanksgiving, almost to the day, my doorbell rang on a Sunday afternoon. Jackson stood on my porch, hands in his pockets, looking thinner than I remembered, more serious. "Hi, Mom." I didn't rush to hug him, didn't cry, just opened the door wider. "Come in." We sat in the living room, awkward as strangers. He declined coffee, glanced at the family photos still displayed on the mantel. "Your app seems to be doing well," I said finally. He nodded. "It's breaking even, getting good feedback." A pause. "I'm teaching a financial literacy course at the community college, too." "That's good." The silence stretched between us, years of unspoken words filling the space. "I found a letter from Dad after the lawsuit started. It was in a box of his things I'd kept." He pulled an envelope from his jacket, handed it to me. Thomas's handwriting on the front. "For Jackson, open when you're ready." My hands trembled as I unfolded the yellowed paper. "Son, if you're reading this, I'm gone and you finally look through that box of junk I kept telling you to take. Better late than never. There's an account at First Citizens, joint with your mother, but she doesn't know about it. I've been putting a little aside each month for 20 years, my secret gift to her for retirement. Around $50,000 by now. Here's the thing. I'm telling you about it, not so you can touch that money, but so you can make sure she uses it for herself. Your mother has spent her life taking care of everyone else. Make sure she takes that trip to Ireland she's always talked about. Make sure she buys herself something nice without checking the price tag 3 times. And if I'm being honest, son, I'm worried. The doctors found something on my last scan. Might be nothing. Might be why I'm writing this letter. If it's the latter, your mother will need you to be the man I raised you to be. Love you always, Dad." Tears blurred my vision. Thomas had known he was sick, had tried to prepare in his own way. "He never told me," I whispered. "Me neither. Not directly." Jackson's voice was rough with emotion. "I found out about his heart condition after he was gone, when I requested his medical records." "Why didn't you tell me about this letter?" He looked down at his hands. "I convinced myself I was following his wishes, that the money was meant for me to manage for you, that I knew better." A bitter laugh. I was wrong. About everything. We sat with that truth between us, neither rushing to fill the silence. "I can't undo what I did," he said finally, "but I'm trying to be better, the man he thought I was." It wasn't an apology, not directly, but it was a beginning. "Would you like to stay for dinner?" I asked. "Renee and Delia are coming over." "Are you sure they want me here?" "No," I answered honestly, "but I do." That dinner wasn't a magical healing moment. Renee was cool, Delia watchful. Conversation stayed on safe topics like weather, movies, and neighborhood news. But there was something better than forced warmth. Respect, boundaries acknowledged, truth recognized. As months passed, a new pattern emerged. Jackson came to Sunday dinner twice a month. The payments continued without fail. We didn't discuss the past often, but when we did, there was honesty instead of excuses. I used some of Thomas's secret account to finally take that trip to Ireland, walked the green hills my husband had promised to show me someday, felt him with me in the mist and stone. The rest I split between a college fund for Renee and Delia's adopted daughter and a donation to the community college where Jackson taught his financial literacy course. 2 years after that terrible Thanksgiving, I hosted the holiday again. No drama, no accusations, just family finding its way back to each other, changed, but intact. As I watched Jackson help Renee carry dishes to the kitchen, I realized Thomas had been right about our children all along. Jackson would indeed dazzle the world, but Renee would hold it together. And me? I was finally holding myself together on my own terms.
They say motherhood is about sacrifice, about putting your children's needs before your own. And for most of my life, I believe that was the whole truth. What I've learned, what I wish someone had told me years ago, is that sacrifice without boundaries isn't love. It's erasure of yourself, your needs, your future. And ultimately, it doesn't serve your children either. Real love has edges. It says, I will help you, but not at the cost of my own survival. It says, I believe in you enough to let you face consequences. It says, I love you too much to let you become someone who takes without giving back. Jackson is still paying off his debt to me, not just the financial one, but the deeper debt of trust and respect. Some months are better than others. Some conversations still end in hurt feelings and defensive silence. But we're building something new from the ashes of what burned down that Thanksgiving. Something with clearer boundaries and harder truths, yes, but also something real. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to hear more family stories that might help you navigate your own relationships. And share in the comments, have you ever had to draw a difficult boundary with someone you love? What happened? Lastly, download your ebook titled Suspense and Thriller Stories by clicking the link in the pinned comment.